Yeah, ready to go.
Hey everyone from Marathon Money. This is actually a special edition. We did this a few times last year. There's a very few opportunities we get out to be able to get something before like IPO. And I know a lot of people ask me about companies like this and trying to get in and try to get some semblance of like vetting them out. But Colin here he's a CEO of ARMR Science, and they're raising capital, and this type of opportunity that's not on the market gives people the chance to like really get into something that is doing something that's actually changing the world and fighting against something. To be honest with you, everybody knows fentanyl and how that has taken form in the streets. And that's one of the things that they're fighting. And I'll let him introduce himself, introduce his company. You can go, Colin.
Thanks, Kenny. No, I appreciate it. You said it best. We are fighting the biggest health crisis facing the United States at the moment. I mean, it's impacting, like you said, everyone from people suffering from substance use disorders that are unfortunately on the streets to upper class billionaires. It doesn't matter. There's no discrimination that occurs when fentanyl is in the drug supply. And unfortunately, it's now become the number one killer of adults under the age of 45. So it is quite literally the biggest health crisis facing young adults today. It costs the U.S. economy $2.7 trillion every single year, as measured by the White House. So in my mind, there's nothing bigger that we could solve for at this moment. So just to tell you a bit, to back up a bit and tell you a bit about our company.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to tell you a bit about our company, we are developing the first ever preventative, protective immunotherapy for fentanyl overdose and addiction potentially as well. Basically, what we're doing is developing what would at first be an intramuscular injection, but what I'd like to have available as a sublingual tab or a nasal spray for ease of usability. I'm not a big needle person myself, but the idea is that we would have this immunotherapy available that would block and protect against fentanyl and other synthetic drug threats, such as methamphetamine, for instance, medetomidine, carfentanil, some of these drug threats that hopefully most of you haven't heard of. But this is an opportunity to completely change the treatment landscape in substance use disorders and an overdose. And really the biggest opportunity that we have here is to save the hundreds of thousands of lives that have been lost over the last 3-4 years. There's nothing in a greater order of magnitude. For example, the fentanyl crisis alone has taken more lives, or the overdose crisis alone has taken more lives than World War I, World War II, the Vietnam War. So you can imagine the bloodshed on U.S. soil that's occurring, and it just keeps happening silently without people paying attention to it, mostly due to stigma, but mostly due to, frankly, lackluster solutions. What we have right now is completely reactive and based on people reacting to tragedies that happen, whereas we're developing the first ever proactive protective solution. So really, ARMR Sciences is a biosecurity company at the end of the day, and we're developing these models, these drug models and formulations, utilizing the latest in frontier AI technology to outpace the bad actors that are shipping these illicit synthetic drug threats into the United States and harming all of our U.S. citizens.
Is this like almost like the EpiPen?
It's a good question.
It sounds like it.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's more like it's actually more like PrEP for HIV. So this is something that you would take, for example, put yourself in the shoes of being in college or university, and you're going out to a party, or say you're getting ready for the next semester. And before you go off to school, if you think you might be experimenting with drugs, or your parents think you might be experimenting with drugs, you would take this one-off shot for now, or the sublingual tab, and you would be completely protected against fentanyl, which is really the most lethal killer in the drug supply today, for 12 to 18 months. And then, you'd have to re-administer it. But it's no different than the series of, immunizations that you normally get before going off to university. For example, in undergrad, I went to Ohio State, and you had to get a series of immunizations before you could even go off and be in the dorms with other students. So it'd just be, similar to that. It's the exact same thing. It's similar to GLP-1 drugs, for example, for weight loss. Instead of reacting to weight loss, after it occurs, GLP-1 drugs can provide a pathway for you to get better proactively and really take more of a defensive stance. And we're the exact same thing. I mean, we are basically providing people with a biological armor against these drug threats at the end of the day.
Dude, that's amazing.
Thank you.
Fentanyl has okay, let's face it, people are going to take drugs if they're in college. You know what I mean? But the problem is you don't know what it's laced with. And that's the biggest issue, right? And that's what's causing a lot of, definitely with weed nowadays. Even if weed has become more commercialized, you still don't know what exact liquid, which could cause major allergic reactions. Any drugs can be laced with anything. But you're telling me if you can take a shot, a one-off shot, like a one-off EpiPen, that could prevent a major overdose. Is that what you're kind of saying?
So that's exactly right. So investors ask me all the time, what is your total addressable market? I mean, how is it limited to people suffering from opioid use disorder? Kind of the people that immediately come to mind are people that have addiction issues, that are unfortunately homeless. And yes, I mean, we want to solve that problem. I don't think anyone should be suffering on the streets. That's something that I think we can end as a nation with medical advancements, and that's what we're working on. But beyond that, it's hard to imagine someone that this couldn't benefit. I mean, half of the United States will try a drug in their lifetime. That's over 150 million individuals who will try a drug in their lifetime. And now, unfortunately, according to the DEA, all it takes is one pill. They have this whole slogan, one pill can kill. And so if you're a college student out at a party, and for example, you happen to get a bad batch of drugs, like you mentioned marijuana, weed, et cetera, synthetic fentanyl is now laced in everything from vape pens to marijuana, cocaine, methamphetamine, illicit Percocet, Xanax, Adderall. It's in everything. And nowadays,
it's in everything.
Kids and Kenny, kids can literally log on to social media platforms like Snapchat, unfortunately, and have this stuff delivered right to their doorstep, either at college or at home. And they have no idea what they're getting. They're playing Russian roulette at the end of the day. So my job is just to educate parents of these real dangers that, no one thinks it's going to happen to them, but it can very easily happen to them. And we are quite literally one of the very few companies that is on the front lines of advancing new technologies to prevent this crisis from becoming even worse than it already is. And you're seeing that everyone from, President Trump to, mothers and fathers who have lost loved ones, to leaders of the Drug Enforcement Agency, to the Attorney General, everyone in the United States knows that this is a massive problem and is dealing with it in ways that constrict the supply or address education or stigmatization, which are all things that we need. But where we're feeling the biggest gap is the lack of preventative protective solutions on the medical front. That's where there really aren't many actors right now. You do have reactive solutions like Narcan or longer lasting like Vivitrol, but those are only effective
after the fact.
Exactly.
After the fact. There's rarely anything in this world that we have that is a preventive measure, that we don't really have much out there. And a lot of people don't know this. Even and it might be a little bit off topic, but like you ever have a domestic violence situation, a cop comes and the cop tells you, I can't do anything until after the fact. You know what I mean? It just shows you there's not really much preventive situations out there. And the reason why I really like what you're saying and really like your product is that this is where I can see this thing becoming successful, and I have a ton of questions. Successful. It's already a problem with the fentanyl, and kids are getting taught. I don't know if you remember DARE in elementary or middle school. And then you remember I will never do drugs. College comes, you end up doing drugs. I think that will create a big solution for a lot of parents to say, like, yeah, I don't want you to do drugs, but if you do, if there's an off chance you're doing them, please take this, because you don't know what you're getting. I think my first actual question to you is, what are the human trials like? If there's any.
That's a good question. So let's talk a bit about the data. So far, we've tested this for the last 6 years in animals of various different species. The results have been outstanding. We block up to 98% of fentanyl from reaching the brain. And just to back up and give everyone context, if fentanyl doesn't reach your brain, you don't have the impending overdose effect. So you don't have the respiratory depression that ultimately stops your breathing. You don't have the euphoric effects that could lead to addiction down the line. So the entire basis of how our formulation works is it basically causes your body to have this immune response. Your immune system attacks the fentanyl molecule and binds to it and prevents it from crossing into your brain. And like I said, if it doesn't reach your brain, you don't have the euphoria that leads to addiction. You don't have the respiratory or depression that leads to overdose. So we've blocked 98% of that fentanyl from reaching the brain, which is tremendous. It's almost a complete blockade. In addition to that, the downstream effects from blocking that 98% of fentanyl, it leads to a 100% elimination of the addictive behavioral effects. So if you think about, I grew up in a household that was unfortunately filled with addiction. So this is close to home for me and a big reason as to why I got into this. But if you think about the people out there who are trying to get better and trying to recover, they just need one more step, one more kind of leg in their journey to get better. This would be an absolutely ideal solution to them, because they can go into a facility, they can go to the hospital, wherever it is, and potentially take this on day one, if we are approved, take this on day one and having a complete elimination of the addictive behavioral effects. Now, so I just talked about all of the animal data that we have. So where are we now? We're coming up on quite literally, in my opinion, the most exciting inflection point in the company's history, which is the start of our phase 1/2 clinical trials, which will be the first in human, first-class product dosing of this immunotherapy. If we can translate the data from animals into humans that we've seen, it'll be tremendous. I mean, it'll be an absolute game changer for the fentanyl crisis, and hopefully the entire synthetic drug crisis as a whole, which includes opioids. Like I said, it includes non-opioids. Really, this is a biosecurity attack, in my opinion, on the United States. And we're only just seeing the beginning of this, especially as we continue to cut off supply. I mean, you're seeing, I just want to commend what the U.S. government is doing. They are doing a great job at the border, cutting off drug supply coming into the United States, working with China to stop them from sending the precursors over here. That's all fantastic. But there is still a huge profit incentive for the bad actors. And as long as there's that profit incentive, that demand is going to be fulfilled in some fashion. It may not be fentanyl, but it could be fentanyl 2.0 or fentanyl 3.0. And that's what we're developing responses to right now. We want to get ahead of the next fentanyl crisis. So we're dealing with fentanyl. We want to end that. We want to stop the dying of tens of thousands of people, babies, children, mothers, fathers, etc. But we also want to completely prevent the next crisis from ever taking hold. And a great example of this, Kenny, and I'll stop ranting here, would be anthrax. If you think about the anthrax scare in the early 2000s, that was a huge, that was a biosecurity threat. And unfortunately, we lost 5 people in the United States. But if you compare that to the fentanyl crisis, we've lost tens of thousands in the United States. The difference is the United States immediately rallied, pharmaceutical companies immediately rallied and developed preventative protective countermeasures against anthrax. And they stopped it from ever becoming a crisis like fentanyl is today. And I believe that's what we have the opportunity to do here now for the fentanyl crisis. Long answer to your question, but
no, man, dude, it's amazing. It's amazing, dude. I'm sorry. I'm really actually looking forward to like what this actually becomes, because you guys are doing something that really it most of the parents spend the time preventing it by just telling their kids. Now there's actually a device that can actually help your kid if something like that, and they finding themselves like, okay, you know, kids has been overdosing definitely with the fentanyl. And I feel like, you know, the next question is kind of like, I already kind of know the answers to the next question, to be honest with you. I really do. And you know, it's a marketing perspective. You know, you know, if this product is preventative, who pays for it? The parents, law enforcement, hospital, government. Like, you kind of can tell who's going to pay for this. I can see the building of like, you know what, this is a preventative. This actually works. Like, I already can see hospitals are definitely going to be a part of it. Government definitely, law enforcement definitely. Because on site, when the kids is like, oh, because overdosing, does that help when somebody is overdosing? Because I might be getting ahead of myself.
No, you're not getting ahead of yourself. It's a great question. Look, I mean, it would completely eliminate, if we're successful in human clinical trials. And just to back up, I didn't do a good job explaining it earlier. So we are in the preclinical phase right now, and we're transitioning to the clinical phase, which is a huge milestone and inflection point in any sort of biotech lifespan. And we're anticipating to conduct an initial public offering, hopefully on NASDAQ. We reserved our ticker recently. We're planning an IPO around that milestone of starting this first in human phase 1/2 clinical trial. After that, we are likely going to have to conduct other clinical trials, and you know, hopefully we're successful in those and we can get this product to market. But when you think about the cost per overdose, I mean, I think it was estimated that it's roughly $700,000 per overdose, if not more. And then you add the cost of life, and then you add the cost of the individuals impacted by each overdose. So it's estimated that for each overdose, there are 15 other people impacted. And that's not hard to imagine. You think about friends, family, employers, all the above, the government help, that the hospital help has to step in. So I am extremely confident that if we're successful bringing this to market and we get this product approved, it'll get paid for. The government will help pay for it. The hospital system will help pay for it. Insurance companies.
Yes. I'm already on board with you, man. I'm already on board with you. Like, I'm excited, man. Like, I can see this actually working. Like, that's why I compare it to the EpiPen. You're 100%. You get this approved, this is something that really it solves the problem immediately. And I'm gonna tell you, I'm like I told you, I was a Wall Street trader. I'm an investor. I love things that you can see it working. Like, you kind of have to be like, you know, this is a kid can see this working. Like, you know what I mean? You can sell this to a 5-year-old. This can actually work. And you're solving a big, huge problem in this country, man. Opioids was such a big problem in the late 90s, 2000. And I feel like if there was something like this, and then people were off-branding it and then lacing it as well. Like, that's the you know, the Hulu documentary, the Netflix documentary, those stuff wasn't really talked about. Like, people were creating off brands of it, and it was making it worse. Fentanyl is actually a drug that's supposed to help people, but people lace it and stuff like that. And, you know, now it's just, there has to be something out there. And I don't feel like, is there a competition? I know I'm getting ahead of myself. Is there competition for you out there?
No, I like that you keep thinking ahead, because that's my job too. So yes, I mean, we are absolutely under the gun. I mean, this is a lot of people don't focus on this industry, but there are several key competitors who are big publicly traded companies. The biggest difference, though, and the reason why I think we have the opportunity to actually not only match where they are in value, but surpass it greatly, is because we are talking about, you know, preventative prophylactic market, whereas they're just reacting. So, you know, you utilize their therapeutic when needed. With us, this is, you said it earlier best. When there are parents out there who are concerned, when there are caregivers who are concerned, patients in the hospital who need this, this is something that you give far ahead of ever having an overdose or developing an addiction. So this is something that, in my mind, the total addressable market between us and those companies that are based on reactive technologies is significantly greater. So I'm personally very optimistic and psyched about where we're going.
So I got to think a little. I got to think on the negative side, the con side. So is this a one-time shot for the rest of your life?
No, it's not.
Or is this?
So we're developing this to last, roughly 12 to 18 months is what we're targeting right now. And the reason for that, I just want to acknowledge this up front. This was a key concern when we first got into this research was when you think about fentanyl, and you kind of alluded to this, fentanyl is a highly effective analgesic in the right setting. In a medical setting, used appropriately, it's a great drug for pain. But when used inappropriately, when put into the illicit drug supply, it's a highly lethal drug, because you can imagine drug dealers and such are not, they're not carefully measuring out how much drug they're putting into.
That's the thing I was saying about the opioids. They're not doing that.
Exactly. And that's the biggest difference here. But what I'm getting at is, we sometimes get questions from investors. Okay, will your therapy, will your immunotherapy completely block fentanyl as a use case? For a temporary period of time, yes, it'll render fentanyl completely ineffective. But that doesn't mean, and I've talked to many anesthesiologists about this. I've talked to anesthesiologists from Duke, from Stanford, from Harvard Medical School. All of them have said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that basically if you can't practice anesthesiology without using fentanyl, you shouldn't be practicing at all. Because there are a host of other substances like propofol, morphine, et cetera, for postoperative care. There are other anesthetics and analgesics that you can utilize that this does not cross-react with. So our immunotherapy is very specific to fentanyl and fentanyl alone. We want to isolate the lethal killer, and that's it.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you with the whole fentanyl and the Harvard. I saw that somewhere where if you can't use NCI without fentanyl, you shouldn't be using it at all. I definitely read that. And so nice to know the shelf, like once you take a shot, it lasts 12 to 18 months. Am I correct?
That's right.
All right. So like you got to do it again. Who are the people? I understand the people like college students, people like who might be addicted to drugs. But what is there going to be and I might be just, maybe I put an idea in your head. We used to do that on here, but is there a way to tell if somebody's prone to be addicted, that has an addictive nature? Because it seems like you guys are kind of headed that way, and then they could take this.
Yeah, it's a good question. There are telltale signs. I mean, it's obvious that addiction in some cases is hereditary. But beside that, I mean, there are early signs that parents can see, caregivers can see in their children. And I'm sure, even the users themselves are able to realize it. Otherwise, no one would ever get better. So there are telltale signs. And one of the most interesting things that I think we can utilize in the future, I'm a big data person. So one of the most interesting things I think we can utilize in the future is some sort of predictive analytics system where we can kind of take in all of this alternative data, all of this unstructured data and structured data, and understand what are those telltale signs. Is this person a 5 out of 10 on the risk scale? Is this person a 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10? And if they're above a certain threshold of their potential to become addicted to the substance, then they're in the high risk profile for overdose because they're likely to use these drugs. And then B, they're in the high risk profile for addiction. And that's where we could potentially come in and fill that slot. There are several systems. In fact, we were talking with one earlier today that are in the works in early stages of this. So, I'm a big fan of build or buy. I'm not sure if this is something that we would build in-house, but this is absolutely something that we would want to partner with someone on. I mean, for example, who's the world leader in terms of utilizing unstructured, structured data and driving results out of it? In my mind, it's Palantir. Alex Karp is doing a fantastic job at taking in vast amounts of data and working with governments around the world, working with private clients around the world to help them drive decisions and help them be more efficient and effective companies. And I think, it'd be fantastic to partner with that type of company, someone similar to that, or, Palantir themselves, to utilize all of the data that they have available to completely develop a predictive analytics system where we could get ahead of this crisis and then come in with our, I'll call it an anecdote for now, for lack of a better term, but our immunotherapy, and prevent that from playing out across the United States and potentially across the world. But it's a great idea, Kenny.
No, yeah, because I see, and just my brain, and I'm a entrepreneur business guy. My brain was like, okay, if we can have something like a test. My uncle was addicted to drugs. My mom was addicted to drugs. My second cousin, third remove, was addicted to drugs. You know what I mean? Do I have those genes? Do I have those tendencies? Is there a test that can be taken? Because I feel like then it's like, okay, if I am prone to that,
right?
Why don't I just start taking that? Why don't I just start taking the preventive measures?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I mean, it's something I wrestle with in my head because, like I said, I grew up with a parent like you, heavily addicted to alcohol, certain types of drugs, and has continuously struggled with those issues all throughout life. I'd love to get ahead of it. Just like there are telltale signs. That's why the doctor asks you every time you go in for a physical, are there any other family members with certain types of cancer or cardiovascular risks? I mean, in that same light, I think we have the opportunity here to understand the addiction market a bit better, understand the overdose market a bit better, and who is at a higher risk. And that's exactly where ARMR Sciences could slot in with their solutions. I mean, this is literally a problem that is being dealt with at three levels. I mean, I think we're at this kind of triangle of operation right now. There's the government, there's the economic problems, and then there's the societal problems. And they're all coming together at this intersection, this triumvirate intersection. And that's where ARMR Sciences has the potential to completely solve that problem from all three of those angles. It's rare to find a company that is operating in a space that impacts so many different parts of the world. I mean, you read about, literally, I'm biased. I actually read about it every day. But if you set a Google alert for fentanyl or overdose or synthetic drugs, you'll read about it every day. You'll read about infants overdosing. You'll read about teenagers overdosing. You'll read about fentanyl tariffs and the geopolitical tensions. You'll read about officers coming into contact with these synthetic drugs and having perceived or real overdoses. There's this huge problems. It's crazy. I mean, it's literally everywhere, Kenny.
Communities, law enforcement come across communities, large communities of addicted to fentanyl or opioids. Like that's why I'm saying it's huge, man. Like we're getting close to the end. Some of these questions I got from my audience, scalability, I already know how. I can see the scalability. It's very easy. We already have the marketing plan. You know what I mean? But, I want to talk about I know you did the animal trials. You want to take the company IPO. Where is the clinical development right now in the stage right now?
Yeah, so we are on the precipice of entering our human clinical trial. So that'll be the phase 1. We're doing a phase 1/2 clinical trial, and that's set to start, hopefully later this year or early next year. And that's going to be, tremendous. After that, hopefully we'll get some data several months after the initial study start, and several months thereafter, and maybe be able to wrap the clinical trial before year end. And really be able to tell people, is this thing safe? Is it toxic? And is it going to work in people? And I just want to be super clear about one thing. So coming into this, I was actually, I discovered this research. I didn't develop it myself. I discovered this research with several brilliant scientists who have since become my co-founders, Dr. Colin Hale at the University of Houston, Dr. Ofer Levy, Dr. David Dowling at Boston Children's Hospital and Harvard Medical School. And my initial question was, what, you know, is this going to be safe? I mean, I'm a skeptic by nature. I'm kind of like you, Kenny, more of an investment background. And I came to find that this is an extremely simple formulation. There are 3 components to it. 2 out of these 3 components have already been dosed in humans, one of which is already approved and on the market. So the last component that we're dealing with here is basically, you know, a molecular clone of fentanyl itself, but it's biologically inert in terms of its side effects. So it doesn't have any of the same side effects as fentanyl. Obviously, that would defeat the purpose of what we're trying to do. But what I'm getting at is the safety portion of what we're going after here. In my opinion, I think we have a very good chance of success given our understanding of the formulation right now. 2 out of 3 components, so 66% of it has already been dosed in humans. The last third of it, we understand relatively well because it's so similar to what currently exists in terms of the fentanyl molecule itself. So that's where we are. That's where we're going to be in terms of inflection points with completion of our phase 1/2. And then down the line, we have to either enter into another phase 2 study, or there are several regulatory opportunities that could be applicable to us that could accelerate our timeline. But nothing's definitive. We got to keep going after everything that we possibly can right now.
So there's 3 stages of clinical trial, or how many from what I've seen looking at biotech companies, usually about 1, 2, 3 stages of clinical trials. You know what I mean? Clinical trial 1, for the people, like, for you guys didn't know, I did put the QR code. It links right to there where you can invest. It's like $5,000 a share. I put the QR code. All you have to do is scan your phone from, you know, you guys, a lot of people watch from their phones. A lot of people watch on YouTube, a lot of people. And then for those people that are listening on Apple and Spotify, all the information will be in the Apple description, Spotify description. And then for those people that are on Pandora and all that stuff, obviously you'll be able to have it there as well. But get back to what are you expecting in the first clinical trial? What is your expectation as the CEO of this company?
Yeah, so we'll be measuring safety and toxicity, and for the reasons I just outlined, you know, the majority of this formulation has already been dosed in humans, so it's relatively de-risked from that standpoint. And I mean, these immunotherapies have really been studied now for the last almost 30 years in different types of formulations, different shapes, sizes, et cetera. So this is not like some sort of overnight success technology that was just developed. The biggest difference and the reason why this is now of relevance and utility, and I think of extreme value, is due to the fact that our adjuvant technology in the immunotherapy has shown such robust success in animals that all we really need to do is translate that animal success into humans now. So the phase 1 is going to measure safety, the phase 2 is going to measure efficacy, and then the phase 3 is just a broader expanded efficacy study, multi-site, multi-jurisdiction, multi-demographic, et cetera. I just want to say, with what we're working on, this is, everyone, all of you on the call probably realize this, but this is a public health emergency. It's been declared as such since 2017. The current presidential administration is heavily focused on it because of it being designated as a public health emergency, and for other reasons that we may see after our phase 1 portion of our clinical trial. We have the opportunity to apply for breakthrough therapy designation, fast track designation, priority review vouchers, which several were just awarded recently from the HHS. So all of these opportunities, I think, are going to be afforded to us because the U.S. government is so hyper-focused on solving this problem, and because America, as a whole, is so focused on solving this problem. So we may have the opportunity for an expedited regulatory path, and hopefully we can get this product to market much faster than the typical biotech timeline, which is usually pretty extensive. That'd be my goal.
And that's honestly, that's amazing. And to give you my final opinion before we get off the show, this is something I feel like I haven't heard of. And every medicine out there, every biotech technology out there is more reactive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Instead of prevent. Very just like with the HIV, but like you kind of have to have HIV, then it's just a preventive to not give HIV to anybody else. That's not really a preventative measure to me. You know what I mean?
Right.
What you're doing is a preventative measure, is a true preventative measure. Second, what I really wanted to say is that with the exact thing you're doing in the last 12 to 18 months, you know, I personally think like schools and colleges that are the like kind of like the introduction ground for drugs. You know what I mean? I think that they're going to get behind this and get back this. And, you know, just as like we come to a closing here, I think a lot of people is going to start getting behind this. I think a lot of big programs that are like basically drug preventative programs, because like let's be honest, a lot of those programs didn't get the success they thought they were going to get.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, they didn't. It didn't get the success it thought it would get because peer pressure. It's you already know it's an itch that doesn't go away. So, but man, I'm really excited. I do want to like dive more deep in, but I was hoping you could come back on the show, you know, as time progressed to see where you're at after the like clinical trials and see what you're doing and see how people can get on here. So do you have one more thing you want to say before we get off?
Yeah, no, I just appreciate your support, Kenny. It's, you know, it's good to have that vote of confidence. We need it. I mean, the biggest thing that I want to say to everyone is, you know, don't be afraid to speak up. We all have to rally behind this together. Unfortunately, this is the reality of what we're facing today. And if we work together on this, we have the opportunity to solve it. So, you know, thanks for everyone joining in, and thank you, Kenny.
No, thank you for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. This is the type of like when I was reading about it, I got the sense of what you were trying to do, but I didn't know the level of technology and what you literally like. To me, once I heard you say that, I was like EpiPen. Like EpiPen, the moment it came to market, it went crazy. I don't know if you remember that or read about it. It came to market and it went crazy. Because like it was instant, it worked instant, and if that is something you're bringing to the market, I wouldn't be surprised if it works as quick as possible. Like people just like, no, I need this. You know, I mean, you get a great marketing team behind you. I don't see you being any shy of this your company being a multi-billion-dollar company.
Thank you, I appreciate
definitely around the world.
Hopefully, we can follow up. And at that time,
and we'll definitely,
we'll all be celebrating because that'd be a huge success for society and the United States in general. I agree.
100%, guys. We'll have them back on sometime after the first clinical trials. But I want to say thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and thank you for tuning in. Guys, look into this. This is a type of investments I do like. You know what I mean? So it brings in a way of looking at it and be able to get into something at basically at the bottom. Thank you. Peace.